Hey everybody, welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David, I'm your host. I want to talk about our new, they call it the T-League, which is the combination of the Pro League and the Super League coming together to form one league, top and second tier league and so on. So I've got my panel who is going to help me with this discussion. Viewers should sit back, let me introduce them, and so you can hear a little bit about that new league. I've got Narada Wilson. Welcome to the set, Narada.
Always a pleasure to be here, Steve.
Next to Narada, we've got Larry Joseph. Welcome to the set, Larry.
Thanks again, Steve. Always a pleasure.
And then we got Jefferson George. Jefferson, welcome to the set.
Good night, Steve. Always a pleasure to be here.
Right. Guys, it is so crazy. Our football is in its worst state right now as far as playing. And now with all the other complications off the field, it makes it even worse. And how can we attract sponsors and how can we attract anything? So let's discuss what's going on or what we heard and a little bit of what we know, because we hear a lot more than we really know what's actually going on. I heard that the league is going to start October 4th. That's the next, it's been postponed so many times. And October 4th is the next deadline date for this league to start. But there's still a lot of things, subvention and other things to go on. So, I'll throw it out there. What have you heard? And let's discuss it as a barbershop discussion into what's going on. Let's talk about it. Let's rap about what's going on in this T-League.
Well, if we go in with the October 4th start, I think and again, it always goes back to administrators making decisions without understanding from a footballing side or from the player's perspective. When we start in October, if we do start this league in October, what cycle are we following in terms of our players locally to benefit in national team, and then how we have success? Because there were times we followed the European dates. There were times we went with the CONCACAF dates, doing like the States, the February stuff. Now we go into October. To me, the few leagues that I know in October might be the Asian leagues, Vietnam, Thailand, a couple of these countries. And probably, the Asian. So, Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. Or some of the Eastern Europeans leagues like Finland and stuff, we see our guys getting signed around that time.
How about if we call it the late European League? Because it's just starting a little bit behind the English league.
Because we're going to start a league in October. Yeah. So by Christmas, are we going to give these guys a break? Where we also had a break for Carnival when we respect our tradition here. So these guys, after 1-2 months of football, then going to stop. Then what? Come back and play in January for a month and then stop again. So
you have to play through Carnival,
right? So I think that is something we have to think about, and then it trickles down into then the government with when they get their monies for the budget. Do we give these clubs all the money up front and expect them to last until the next year? Is October going to go until July, or is it going to go to another October? That I think I know they're hashing it out, they're having meetings, but I hope the consideration is being taken about where do we see ourselves as a national country with having availability of local players, and where these players would be during preseason, end of season, in terms of our CONCACAF or national football games.
Yeah. Jeff, I need more time to wrap my mind around all the postponement that this particular league has had. I think I read an article quoting Brent Sancho saying that it should now start on October 4th. Because of what has gone on before, I'm not going to hold my breath on that date. I am just saddened that we are in August, which is the 8th month of the year, and we are seeing that our top division is scheduled to start in 2 months' time, which puts us at the 10th month of the year. And I don't know if any other country in the world has put off the start of the major sport, which is football, at the highest level for 10 months in a year. And we got to assume that it will start on October 4th. So it's just a soap opera that's unfolding in front of us in terms of this startup or this T-League. And I have just basically resigned myself from following it too closely because of the fact that it doesn't seem to be bringing us any closer to actual start. I want to see football.
Likewise, I am eagerly anticipating the start, and again, because it involves the top teams in the country. You know, it will bear a direct relation on our national teams going forward. The date of October 4th has been given, which is by now the fifth start
About
date,
that,
right?
yeah.
And I mean that's a lot. That's a lot of dates, and it spans quite a long time as well. Okay, so I would agree with Larry when he says that there is no need or no reason really for optimism in this case. One of the things that is quite concerning for me is that the league, the professional league, in its last edition, came to a very, I don't want to say abrupt halt because it's still kind of grind out because of the lack of funding, right? Which was a subvention, just about $50,000, right? And if a league can come to, can wind down because teams aren't going to get $50,000, it tells you how, the type of shape that financially that these teams are in. They depend on this subvention. It's not something that is additional funds.
Yeah.
It is something that the teams require
That's the
to
working
run.
capital.
And that is, for me, very concerning. If that money isn't guaranteed, I don't see this league being able to start. That's
Let's talk about how does this affect players. In addition to, I think the Pro League issue as the biggest issue, and they're affecting now the Super League platform that they built. They built in the communities as well. So coming together, and then now they're stumbling to start, and they have a second tier which is all Super League teams. But they're stumbling to start. So let's talk about how it affects players, economic effect. Effect on people having to put food on the table and all of the different things. It like nobody cares, nobody business.
Well, I think the model, the idea to come up with the model where you merge the top Super League teams with the professional teams, which is the actual concept of the top tier in the so-called T-League, is a good idea. It's a good model, right? Obviously, the Super League teams hope to benefit by playing a higher level competition by participating in the same tournament with the professional league teams. So that's an obvious benefit for them. Obviously, the drawback would be that for the last few years, the Super League has run a very organized, well-coordinated league, right? And now they're in a situation where they as well can't start because it's hitched on to the professional league, which has been in problems as long as we can remember. The professional league, I think, carries with it the weight, again, of having that burden of salaries, right? And again, these would be teams that would be heavily dependent on that funds which they are now waiting for.
I certainly think, man, the problem is with the professional league that's destroying the Super League because one bad apple has spoiled the whole bunch, right? So I think we might see a year from now the Super League dissolve and going struggling, because I thought the Super League had a good thing going. I don't know how you guys felt about that. And the professional league, you go, you see 5 people in the stand, like you said. But Super League, you see a nice little crowd in the neighborhoods.
I think what they wanted at the end of the day, and any team would want, is the ascension of attaining what is the highest, or access to what is the highest level of football in any region. And based on, FA rulings and FIFA rulings, in the CONCACAF region, for our access of the domestic tournaments, who has access is the highest tier of any country. And on paper, that is what the Pro League has. It's the highest tier of national football in the country. But the Super League teams for the last few years, and even before that, believed that they were in the communities and had the support and the majorities. But for you to maintain the support and the majorities, even from the fans and the players' perspective, your players in the Super League will always be wanting to play at a higher level. And even if the Super League clubs may not necessarily be better organized or better than they are, they just have access to playing the teams from the States, Mexico, and all these other countries. So for the Super League to live on, they would have had to find a way, how do we get access to that? What may be required is Pro League would have had to dissolve, and then the Super League find itself as being the highest tier. Or if not, they had to merge, where over a period of time, teams every year would be able to have access to it. So I think it was the smartest move in terms of negotiating power. The Super League would not have been able to tell all the Pro League clubs, dissolve your league for us to be considered the top tier. The easier way is almost like going through the back door, was let's merge, let's see what happens, and let the football decide who over the next 5 to 10 years we may see. All the 10 teams in the Pro League might be all the Super League teams that were Super League teams last year. I think they did the right move, but it hinged on both parties moving forward. So the Pro League, if they drag their foot, Super League ain't starting, and vice versa.
So and you guys could correct me here, because I'm trying to get some clarity in my own mind here. The concept of the T-League, was it an instruction from FIFA based on where our football was at the time? Somebody could...
Yeah, I think
it's not a concept that
correct.
was locally originated. This was basically a strong suggestion / instruction from FIFA. If you wanted to get any funding, you need to structure your football along these lines. Am I correct? I just want to be sure that I have that straight.
I would think that it's a concept that most people mentioned. I think what FIFA was able to do was get them to sit together, as Mr. Shabazz mentioned one time, but more so tell them that this is the way we could assist with funding. Because what happened is that our Pro League was struggling and in need of funding. And the Super League objected to them alone getting the funding, because we could prove, hey, we have 5 things out of the 10 that could say we are also the top league. We have more fans, we have structure of a 2-tier, it's easily accessible to all communities. And the Pro League was just hinging on, maybe 5-10 years ago, we had the document that said we were the top tier league. So I think, because from what I've heard, letters went from both parties to the governing body, saying their legitimacy in fighting for it. And then they decided we need to send our people that would evaluate and say what might be the best concept for everybody benefiting and moving forward.
We need to break, guys. Viewers, we'll be right back after the short break.
And they may have been sold on the concept, but then 8 months has passed and nothing has taken place. So the sooner we can get the T-League up and running, it would make everything a lot better. I do hope.
We, from those encounters together, and this was a North-South game to open the season.
So the team might be playing well, as we always say with Trinidad and Tobago.
Futsal did a great for me.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David. Okay, welcome back, viewers. Listen, I think the struggling Pro League should have just folded. That's just my thought. Here's my thought. And just let the Super League take over because I think that would have been a better move. But I'd like to hear what you guys think.
All right. Well, I think we were, well, at least I was trying to just get clarity on the concept of the T League in terms of whether it was an instruction from FIFA or whether it was something that was agreed upon. But thanks to Narada for clarifying that. So it means then that the two parties at the time agreed that this would be the best way to go forward. And so FIFA would have probably thought, and not only FIFA, but the average person in Trinidad would have thought, okay, all we needed was just these two parties to get together and iron out the format to go forward with this thing. And here we are in August, and we seem to be no closer to getting it kick off the ground. And everybody loses in a situation like that. The players, of course, who are the main shareholders in this, they are the main losers. And I think if this Ascension League didn't come in as a stopgap measure now, what would have been the situation with those teams that are presently participating in that league? It would have meant that we would now have no football in Trinidad and Tobago at the highest level being played as of August 2019. You know. So, and then we're not anywhere closer. The 4th of October it has been stated, doesn't give us too much confidence because of how much other dates have been mentioned and those deadlines have come and gone. And then you read in the newspapers whenever there's information coming out of the working committee, they don't seem to be getting any closer to an agreement that gives confidence that it will kick off. Narada made some really salient points as to even if they hold to the October 4th startup, I mean, where does that put that league and that competition in terms of football calendars? Yeah. Because the FIFA games, FIFA dates, and all those things are going to be affecting that league when it does kick off, right? But the long and short of it is the decision makers on both sides of the fence need to get this league up and running. You know, I mean, it is easier said than done because there are some really strong personalities on both sides, and their disagreements have been to-ing and fro-ing and in the public view for the last few months. And so it has become, as I've mentioned, a soap opera as far as I'm concerned. You know. But again, it's not a good picture that has been painted of our local game. It's not a good picture being painted of our local administrators, right? Because if I think I'm a really good administrator, but what I'm administrating is not, the activity is not taking place, then I can't pat myself on the back. I have to look at myself and what it is I'm not doing or what it is that I am doing. That if I'm an administrator in football, but in the 8th month of the year, there's no football, that's an indictment against me, you know. So, very concerned about the present situation of the T League, right? Concerned for the players not being paid up to this point. And in going forward, the question of how successful the league would be after such a long delay, what that has done to the confidence of the viewing public. You know, what has that done to aspiring sponsors who may have been willing from initial conversation with them, and, you know, they may have been sold on the concept, but then 8 months has passed and nothing has taken place. You know, so the sooner we can get the T League up and running, it would make everything a lot better. I do hope that if we keep a show in October, we could be speaking about a league that has started and not a league that has another start date.
I hope so too.
I think one of the biggest issues or latest information is that, and it was so since day one, and I think even when Mr. Shabazz was here, it was one of my concerns was that everyone sat in a room agreeing, discussing, negotiating but waiting on funding to do anything. When funding comes from elsewhere, you have to rely on elsewhere. It's not coming out your pocket. So nobody is actually saying, you know what, it's taking too long, let me dip and get it started and wait. Now, we understand the complications in if a private investor was to take it on and foot the bill for a while and then FIFA monies come, it can't really go to him. There would be some problems because of things that have happened over the years. But in my mind, as administrators, they could have negotiated a lot of things. However, the position the federation and football is in right now doesn't hold too well in going to a water company, a hotel, a taxi service and say, could you provide this service? And I promise within the next 2 or 3 months, once the money comes, it could go directly to you because we could put it down, money from FIFA going to water, hotel, or whatever company. 2 months later. The problem is these companies have done it for years, so they don't want to do it anymore. So right now, everybody's hinged, from the information I got, is that the commissioner of the league gave the sport company, as well as the ministry or FIFA, until the 16th to come up with the money in order for the league to start. And if the 16th comes and goes, whatever date comes, they would have to look at the option of dissolving the commission. Doesn't say the league would be dissolved, but those in charge most likely will remove themselves. It really goes to show that everything is hinged on FIFA sending this money, sport company or the Ministry of Sport giving this money for anything to start. Until then, dates could be given, plans could be made, documents could be drawn up, but nothing is going to happen because we're just waiting on money to reach in an account for anybody to start to spend.
And that's the problem, as you mentioned there. If you have a budget, but the money is coming from an external source, then basically you have no control over that budget that you've written. Now, for me, as I said, the real hard hit is being taken by the players at this moment and the Super League, which in normal situations would have started. Right? They are depending on this. Their overheads are a lot lower, right? And they run, as I said, a lot more efficient league. The Pro League, again, would have had to wait anyway because there is no funds to run the professional league, right? And they would have winded down knowing that they need funds to even to restart. At this moment, the things that we look forward to and anticipate is a new model where we would have your top tier football, including not just the so-called professional teams, but you have teams now coming from the community-based teams, which are sort of a mixture of full-time people with your auxiliary staff who pitching in. And for me, I'm eager to see how this works because it is something that I have been a strong supporter of, given our economic situation. I think it's a model that would be more suited for us rather than this idea of having a full-time player, a full-time coach whose salary doesn't provide enough for him to do the things that he needs to do. You know, I think given the time and given some creative negotiating and so on, we can get to a level where we can see our football again on the up.
I suppose that might be a what if.
Another what if. Our professional league is supposed to be the league that carry this country, right? It's supposed to, they say we need a professional league. But it is far from professional in every way, shape, or form.
Yep.
So I figure, what's the sense holding on to a rope that's broke? You're gonna end up in the water anyway. So let's let that load go, and either restructure our entire football, I think, back to just what they used to do back in the day. Call me old timer because I am. But just what they used to do back in the day, and everybody would be in the community doing the same thing. Let's get a league football, north, south. Let's do something to make football enthusiastic again. Because right now it's dead. I don't want to go and see a football game, and I love football to death. And I think I feel real hard for me to get out to jump in the car or to walk to the field to go and see a football game because
that's a valid point. And again, as I said, it's something I've been saying over and over. I mean, the late Richard Thackeray, who has been one of the real stalwarts in local football, given into a team, his suggestion was always to have that football mixed, right? And especially towards the latter part when things became really financially a burden, because all the teams struggle. Every single team struggle. It's not a system that professional football like we see elsewhere. You have big sponsors putting in funds, and then your responsibility as an administrator is to divide up that fund and decide where it goes. No, that you have to figure out where the money is coming from. And as long as the government funds was not a given, it became, you could have seen the proverbial writing on the wall. That was always going to be the end of that, because it's something that is not going to add to what these teams have. These teams depend on that for the running of the league. And I'm saying, if we go back to that model, some people think it's a backward step, but sometimes you do have to step back in order for you to move forward and to get the football to a level where it can run a little bit, on I just say automatic. You have to cut back. Saying that you have a pro league, to have a title of pro league doesn't make sense to me anymore, because you go around to these communities, you go around to the places where the teams train, and as you rightly mentioned, it's not professional. It is not professional,
Let's take a break. When we come back, we continue. We'll be right back.
I am not going to deny that. I've said on many occasions, I believe Trinidad needs a pro league. Pro league was there. I believed in what was needed from it, in terms of we needed our football to be in stadia because of security reasons and stuff like that. Because a lot of these communities, we don't say it too often, but
We, from those encounters together, and this was a North-South game to open the season.
So the team might be playing well, as we always say with Trinidad and Tobago.
Futsal did a great for me.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David. I'm your host. Okay, welcome back, viewers. So, fellas, we are so struggling, and we're doing the same thing every year, and subvention is getting less and less. So it will come a time when teams need to function without support from the government or whoever, and that is not look like it's going to happen real soon.
Yeah.
And because of many things, we don't get support from the public. People don't come to a game. Sponsors is not putting out there. We don't have a TV contract, which is most of the leagues in the world function because of television contracts and all that. So where are we going?
Well, we need to. It starts with the administrators deciding that what would be the best format for our situation here in Trinidad and Tobago. I know the concept of the professional league coming into existence in Trinidad was really to satisfy another agenda, so to speak, so that in its inception, I don't think the public both the viewing public and the players, and far more sponsors, were really prepared for a professional football league. I know in talking back in those early days with some people who were involved in the football, they were strongly suggesting maybe a better start would have been with a semi-pro league, which would have more been in keeping with what existed in our society, which is you had players who worked and played, you know, and you would have had a greater impact in terms of sustainability of the league with that type of format. All right, that didn't happen, but I think the principle can still be applied or at least discussed in our present day because the Pro League is how old now? Going on 20 years?
Yeah, I mean,
And it has never incrementally gotten better since its inception. So much so that it's on the other side of the hill now, sliding very quickly. Right? The supporters never bought in because they removed the teams from the community and went into the stadiums. Right? The crowds never followed. The whole concept of they were hoping to fill the stadium, get teams to sell jerseys, and they were selling dreams to teams at the time. Right? The reality has hit us straight in the face. Right? So maybe it's a time, the concept of the Super League is the closest concept to what we're talking about, that semi-pro scenario, where you would still have some of the players working and getting time off and being paid a little stipend to make up so that there would be something to survive on, where still they could have a job. If for whatever reason they had to stop playing football, they had a job. And the team remained in the community, and so the supporters would be 5 minutes away from the field, or maybe 10, which would be a short drop. And so it would ensure that you had the crowds. I wasn't in full agreement with the Pro League, even though it had to satisfy, as I said, a certain agenda, right? But, I mean, look at what it is now. You know, I mean, if I were to invite, let's say I had an English friend who followed a team in England, and I were to say, well, come and look at our Pro League in Trinidad. I mean, come on. So, I've heard too many people in position defending the Pro League and its concept. The Pro League and its concept cannot exist if the society is not ready for it. That's how I sum it up. Because I say to people, when we turn on our television and we look at the professional leagues all over the world, we have a high dosage of the English league here. I say to them, the English league didn't wake up one morning and get to where they are today. It took them a lot of trial and error, as the case may be. But one of some of the basic principles they have never moved away from. All the teams in the English league and in all the world leagues are community-based leagues. Teams closely attached to the communities. We brought a Pro League that detached the teams from the communities. So you start bad already. You know. And so it is not surprising to me that we are where we are in terms of the Pro League. You know. We have to go back to some basic things. Your foundation must have some basic ingredient in it. No matter what sort of design you want to put to the top. But your foundation always has to retain some basic ingredients. And unfortunately, I think we have moved away from those basic foundational structures. And so we try to see if we put some real fancy toppings. But if the foundation isn't strong, what will happen? And that we have seen that with the Pro League. The Pro League, with all its fanfare, didn't have any foundation, and that's why we are where we are now, where the Pro League is concerned. And as Jeff rightly said, the one that had a more solid base, the Super League, because they have to now join forces, is the biggest loser.
So my question is, what happens if we don't start on October 4th, Narada? You had information on that, right?
We might start in November.
Something about another start date or something?
Well, if they don't start October 4th, it's going to boil down to the reason most likely will be because of funding again. There has been rumors of a present interim league that is running, possibly going for another length of time that could probably fill a gap somewhere in between. But then my thing is, after you postpone 5 times, you can't really come back after and say, well, December we'll be ready. I think people will then fall into, they already, they're not going to believe you anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
But then there's also something else filling the gap. And that is where the problem is. I think then the expectation might be, well, then better we go with what is already running, and then you might find on that league's hand, tournament's hand, a demand to probably say, hey, well, could we try and put money there and see if this thing could run, because you already seem to have some things in order there on the playing side. But if that commission dissolves, as FIFA going back, and that is going to be crazy. I think after this thing with funding, I believe by October, the league will really have to start. I don't see how you come back after that. You're probably going to have to say, well, Super League, you go ahead with your league. Pro League, you sort out your thing with the government. And let's forget this. But then that would be an injustice to the footballing public for you to think that you could come back after that and then try to captivate us on this idea again. Because the idea came for the Pro League, it came for the Super League, it came when the Super League was reinvented, and then it started with this T-League, which was a revamped Pro League, started for a little bit, and then we kind of stopped with this new idea. I have been hearing this since the start of the year. So I have heard February, thinking, well, it wouldn't be in Trinidad, I should probably come back in February, May, July, August, and now September, October. So I don't see them coming back from it. I think I just wanted to touch on what Larry and Jeff was going about, where our league is. I am one who would have been a voice that said we needed the Pro League. I am not going to deny that. I've said on many occasions, I believe Trinidad needs a Pro League. Pro League was there. I believed in what was needed from it, in terms of we needed our football to be in stadia because of security reasons and stuff like that. Because a lot of these communities, we don't say it too often, but many people don't go because of some high-risk issues. It may not be something that is in your face, but it's understood on the man on the ground what happens. However, I could admit that because of what is happening now, we actually could go back. Because a lot of our more senior players, they are playing abroad. The guys that were in that little gap, that probably on the brink or whatever, they've just missed an entire season and a half of nothing. So they've already started to probably work. They're already probably not playing football 24/7 anymore. So if we already have that, it's almost like if it's faded away, it's the perfect time to start and say, here, what? We could do semi-pro. This is where it is. We could probably even cap the salaries at the clubs and say, here, what? This is what you get in max. You could either work, you could take that, and let us start this thing over so every club knows exactly what he's dealing with in going forward. I also keep telling people, when I look at the likes of Steve and Larry and their news, you all speak of the leagues before. A lot of the guys were playing in organizations that they were full-time, fully employed at. We may not have all of them now, but there's the military, there's the police service, there's the prisons, there's the fire service. There's UTT and there's UE. That is, I have had meetings where they've mentioned UE should have been a premier sporting, a football institution where students could have gotten scholarships and be attending there. If we had our best students from the college league who get scholarships and stay in UE, they should have been playing in a league that is technically at the highest level. So we already have 6 teams we talk about there. The Pro League may not need 10 teams, but they already have 6 I called that could be paid because the scholarship, you're getting your money and you're playing full-time more or less as a student. All these services, you're already being paid. You have the time off. And then the couple other clubs, if they wanted to be full-time because they have the finances, find ways to merge because a lot of them cannot do it on their own. I don't see a problem with just using around Caledonia and Jabloteh merging together. You're from the same area. You have finances on both ends. Sit down as administrators, draw a middle line and say, here, what? Let's take the best, because the Pro League has to have the best football in the country. We do not have 200 to 300 players at the highest level in Trinidad and Tobago. It boils down to less. Point Fortin has the entire of Point and South. They could say, hey, let's sit down, find a way, find a middle ground, and let's get the best 20 players from the southern region and from Point and find a way to do it. Because when you spread it amongst 4 teams in South, you're going to get some lower level players playing, and then we're not interested in seeing it because we're not seeing the best as it was back in the day, because every team could have named 10 top players on their team. Today, you can't name 3 on each team.
But that affects your bottom line as well, doesn't it?
It does, but at the end of the day, the funding isn't coming from anywhere. And I believe when an organization seems to be covering a larger base, a larger organization takes interest. Because sometimes, as much as we're battling with Super League having maybe, let's say, 3 teams in South and Pro League having 2, that's 5 teams going around to companies in San Fernando saying, we want finances. It's going to be tough. They're not going to give you $1 million. They'll give you 10,000 each. But if it had 2 teams that said, we need this to cause a little rivalry in South, we are the best, there's the community team still there. So the guys have to work towards reaching one day at these top teams, which is what was happening essentially back in the day with you guys. You played at a smaller team, but you were always ambitious to say, one day we want to play with Civic, or one day we want to play with this team. So you constantly go up aiming for that team.
I've become accustomed being the one to put that dose of reality on things. And I've been saying it for quite a number of years. I've been a part of the professional league since its inception, 99.
Yeah.
All right? Larry mentioned it went, sometime gradually down, right? But at this point, it's down. It's on the ground, right? I think we've been involved long enough to know that the economy in which we live in, now, I'm not arguing whether or not there is enough money. If there's enough resources to do it, there might be, and that's a discussion for another time. What is available to sports, culture, what have you? If you look at the disbursement of funds towards sports and culture, there is not enough to run a professional league. That's the reality. A lot of us involved in sports have been blinded. Some of us have tried to ignore it. But the most vulnerable people in that setup continues to be the players. You cannot insist on running a professional league, so-called professional league, and paying a young man $4,000, $3,500 a month, and expects that to be okay. There has to come a time when we have to stop sacrificing our children to that. That does not make sense. And I'm saying that it may sound very harsh. The persons involved aren't at the vantage point to see it yet because they want to play. At that point, I want to play, right? But at the end of the day, 5, 6, 7 years down the road can be even shorter based on injuries in your career and stuff. That is setting up somebody to fail at life.
We cut you a little bit. We'll get you when you come back. I need to break. Viewers, we'll be right back after a short break.
Where you have this vulnerable age group, right, being taught particular skills, whatever it might be, but then there needs to be a learning component into it. So with your same T-League format, you have your Tier 1, Tier 2, and you have...
We, from those encounters together, and this was a North-South game to open the season.
So the team might be playing well, as we always say with Trinidad and Tobago.
Futsal did that great for me.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David. I'm your host. Okay, welcome back, viewers. Jefferson, did you finish? Or
Yeah,
you
no, I'm very passionate about it because, I work closely with the players and I've seen young men who have ability and who have ambition of making it in football being sold dreams. It's hard to do it, but somebody has to do it. Somebody has to say, you're aiming at a very, very small window and you must be able to, if you don't hit that target of becoming a professional, you must be able to live your life. Your professional career is going to be this long. You have life after that, which is going to be this long. And the reality is, if you're not prepared for this amount of time, you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
You're going to struggle in life.
Okay, I'm going to put you guys in the spot. Each of you, be the president or the CEO or whatever of football, what would be your idea of turning things around or running a league? What kind of format you would run? Whatever. You is open to anything that you want to.
Well, if
To
I
run.
had that lablish
Mm-hmm.
powers, I would go back to what was tried and proven and successful. I would take the football back to the community. And the main reason for that is, besides being tried and proven, football now is competing with quite a lot of other sports and competing with quite a lot of other distractions, which means for one, players to play the sport, you're competing with other distractions and other entities. Funding, you're competing with other sports and other distractions. So in order to connect the sport to the people, I would take the game back into the communities via the zones. I would strengthen the zones so that the zones would now be empowered with the resources to do their work in their geographical area. I would have a high level competition for the elite players, whether I would call it a pro league or some other league, but it would represent the highest level of competition for my country. So that would be, it would be something that the players at the zonal level would aspire to. And that league would now supply my national team, senior team that is, of quality players. I would also enlist quality administrators, people who would be competent in various fields and the different areas that are necessary to run a major sport on a national level. And I would ensure that our product and our people would be able to go to prospective sponsors so that we would be able to generate the type of finances that would be absolutely necessary to run the sport. Without the finances, it would be impossible. And sponsors would just make up part of the income source. There would be other income sources, even through the zones. So that's on a broad base concept. That's why I would go that way. And it would be because of what exists now in our football culture. I would want to go that way because I believe it would help redress some of the ills we have both on the playing level and also at the lack of financial resources at the administrative level. So that's it in sort of like a nutshell.
But when you say go back to the zones, you mean back in the day, like what we played in then, or is it and with interleague and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I would
Everything?
would want to come up with a concept that encourage more football.
Right.
Right. Of course, more at the community level, so that when you get more to the interleague, you wouldn't play as much games, of course.
Right.
Right. But one would kind of feed into each other, and once you have that concept and that amount of games, it is expected and assumed that the actual level of the players would increase.
Right.
You understand? And so selection for players even into the higher level of the competition or at the higher level, which would be, for sake of discussion, we just say pro league, right? The players that would be participating at the pro league would deservingly be playing at that level. And selection for my national team would see now a level of competency, technical ability and everything where the coaches now, whoever they may be, local or foreign, would have a quality of player that they could work with and so give us a more competitive edge when we start to compete. I'm not going to detach the plane from strong administration, because as the administration goes, how the football will go. So that's why I would have to staff my administration with competent people who would be able to bring their expertise to the different areas of administration that would be absolutely necessary to oversee the running of football. Especially if we're trying to move it from where it is, it means you would need a higher quality persons in strategic areas to do so. I don't expect that it is going to happen overnight, but I think it's a good platform that I would want to start from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like Larry's suggestion. I wouldn't reinvent the wheel at this moment. I think the concept of the T League is good, and I would probably build around that structure, right? I would be going to the national security from a budget, right, to run the football program, because they have a large chunk of our nation's budget, and I think investing in those youths, I think I can sell the importance of keeping these youngsters gainfully occupied, and not just doing that, but also putting on training components in it, where you have this vulnerable age group, right, being taught particular skills, whatever it might be, but then there needs to be a learning component into it. So with your same T League format, you have your Tier 1, Tier 2, and you have built into it a educational aspect where the youngsters would not be just doing the football, but they will be prepared for life after football. In terms of the zone, yes, strengthening of the zone, part of that budget must be done towards enhancing the teams, your facilities, equipment, training and staffing, and also to divide the league and also add a competition where you have the winners of the zone as part of a group format. So you have three parts. You have the league, you have this group format, which will include the top tier, also the winners of your zones coming into that to form a group, and then you have your FA tournament. So that's two opportunities that the zonal teams will have to compete against the top tier teams, and that would be my...
So you're going to be paying your players in your league. You're going to the national
the top
security.
teams, yeah, the top leagues would be a mixture of professional and your semi-pro. The professional teams, the clubs will have to provide for that budget, right? That wouldn't come from my resources. The other ones would be, everybody will be given money to run the league, but if you are running a fully professional league where your players are full-time, that will be responsibility of the club.
And your budget comes from national security. Is that what you said?
Well, the larger part of the budget, instead of going to sports where I get, probably $1 million or $2 million, I go to national security and let's get
and get them back by. Okay. What would you know, Ryan?
For me, I always had this thing about, in Trinidad, we just need about, well, in my idea, it would be 3 tiers of players. And the first tier would be for the communities. I believe community football to be strengthened. We've all played it. We've all seen what it is. The joy of community football is just simply representing your community and the little fun aspect of it, regardless of if it's from a kid or straight up to an adult, because you've more or less chosen your life a certain way. At that level, I always think what needs to be taken care of is uniform, transport, and refreshment, food, water, whatever the case is. If most structured or even all structured community teams in this country could be taken care of in terms of uniforms, equipment, transportation for their players, meeting at a central location and everybody just goes for the games, and water and food. This is something that happens in Brazil even. Water and food is taken care of. Those guys will go every Sunday. They will go to training all through the week, and they will be there every Saturday or Sunday for game, because you're at the lowest level. That is all you need. The coach is taking care of financially whatever resources in the ministries that they have. But those 3 or 4 things are taken care of. Uniform, transport, that's it. And food. At the second tier, which I'm considering the Super League, These guys are a higher level of player. They're probably going to be employed. They're semi-pro. They just need what I consider to be a stipend. It's whether it's a fee for being on the bench, if it's $300, if it's $500 for playing, and $100, $200 for goals, that is taken care of. So at least at the end of it, in the month, this guy could get an additional $2,000 or $3,000 to the salary he's already working for wherever he's gainfully employed. The Super League assists with that. A lot of the clubs are looking for jobs in CSR positions where they have a little more flexibility. At the top tier, I agree. If we are going with a professional level of football, I think it needs to have a benchmark of about $5,000 or $6,000 a month. Because once you reach that level, I think you should be considered. That is your pay. It's like any educated person coming out of university or high school.
right.
They reach there, you know your opening salary is about $1,000 US, 6,000 PT starting in any way. That needs to happen in football. Once these clubs sign someone, but what also needs to happen as an agent, I've seen this. It cannot be just for the season. You have to guarantee this guy at least 2 years minimum where he can get something like that to be comfortable.
That's good.
3 different opinions, 3 different guys. You see how tough this job is to be the head of the football. But thank you for your ideas. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. Every Monday night, we do repeat on a Tuesday. ACTN, thanks for the opportunity. Check us out on Facebook, and also you can drop us a line on bwtt@gmail.com. The show's ended. Good peace. My name is Steve David. Good night.